Today I'm going to show you how to connect up CloudForms to an Active Directory server. And this is so that you could use an existing Active Directory structure with the users and groups and use that as a source for authentication for CloudForms, right? And we can take advantage of the group structures that already exist in a company. So in our case, I've got a small little Active Directory server that I've set up a few users down here as well as some groups. We'll use those in CloudForms. Just a quick example of how CloudForms sees it, how you would set that up, and then I'll explain kind of how those roles and users can provide a lot of granularity in the access controls of CloudForms. So first thing we'll do is we'll go into the Authentication tab. And we will click on LDAP. Now, in my case, I already set this up, so I'll just kind of walk you through what the things that you need to put in here. First of all, you need a host name, obviously an Active Directory server. You can have multiples, and CloudForms will kind of cycle through them. If any of them aren't available, it will go to the next one. We'll need the Active Directory port. We will use user type, user principal name, and this is because I want to use the Active Directory structure of a user, so the user @ and then the internal domain structure. And so for that, I'm going to throw in the suffix after the user, so I don't have to type that in, as well as I'm going to click a few buttons here because I want to get the groups that are in LDAP and utilize those inside of CloudForms, as well as I want to get roles from there, and then follow any referrals. And that's just in case we want to have a larger Active Directory. I just click that in to have it in there. Base DN is obviously, pretty self-explanatory. It's typical Active Directory or LDAP. My domain is internalexample.com, so this is the structure you'd put in there. And finally, the bind DN and the bind password. These are the username and password that CloudForms will use to access the Active Directory server so that it can query the system. Now, in my case, in my lab, I'm just using the local administrator. Typically, you would use a user that's specifically for querying LDAP that only has a view only inside of the Active Directory. So once we've connected up, we've hit save, we now can start kind of connecting up our groups that exist in Active Directory to roles. And I'll just kind of explain those real quick, just so you have an understanding of what each is. CloudForms has a kind of a hierarchy structure of how it builds things out, and it really starts at the tenant level, and that's the highest level. And a lot of companies, if you're a small company, you may only want to have one tenant and have everything be under that one entity. Some companies have lots of different groups, lots of different departments that each would have their own people accessing their own hardware. So you may want to have multiple tenants in here. And so what's great about this is that everything kind of rolls upwards here. So from tenants, you have roles, which gets a little more granular. And roles are access to CloudForms that you can apply to groups and then throw users underneath groups. So at this level, this is allowing us to view certain things. So in this case, if I look at this product feature on the right, this kind of tree level thing, we'll notice that this mimics quite well with what we see in this left menu. And so what this is basically showing you that from the role level, you can start turning things off, so that groups and users that are attached to this role wouldn't be able to see that in the UI. They wouldn't be able to actually get to that. So let's say we've got maybe an operator, a Windows group that really has no business dealing with cloud stuff. We could actually turn that off. We could go and deselect clouds, and they wouldn't be able to see that. And what they would look like to them is essentially they would no longer see this entry and menu, right? So they would only know about infrastructure and containers. And you can do that for all different things, all different types of different roles. You can even make new roles. If you wanted to, you can add a new role and build it up from scratch. Another great thing is you can take these existing roles, and these are all predefined. These are all out of the box from CloudForms. You could take one if you wanted to and actually copy this to a new role and then begin to edit it and make it your own. A lot of people just typically use what's in here, but if there's specific reasons to change them, you're more than welcome to do that. The next level down, we have our groups, and this is where we start touching our Active Directory. So in this case, we've got some built-in groups that come out of the box, But we also want to have some groups in here that connect back up to our LDAP server. So if you remember, I showed you that I created some groups in here. So CF developers, CF operators, and CF administrators. We should see those in here, right? So we see CF administrators, CF operators. Well, let's actually go through the steps of adding a group, right? So if we wanted to add a group, an LDAP group, right, to CloudForms, we would come up here and say CF, because the one we don't have in here is developers. So we'll do CF dev, because I don't really know the whole name. If I wanted to, I could bounce back and forth and look it up and say, okay, CF developers, and then type it all in here. But I also have this great ability to just look it up. We've got the name in here. We'll look it up. We'll choose a role, right? So we're going to go back down to these roles. We're going to assign this group to a role. And in this case, we want our developers to be down here as our VM users, right? And then we're going to choose a tenant. Again, we only have one tenant, so we just pick my company. And then we're going to look up the user that we want to look up. So CF dev was the name of the user. And we want to use our admin credentials. And this will allow us to do a quick query on this, and we'll pull up any groups that get close to that description, right? So in this case, CF developers. So now we can put that in there, and it's provided that for us. Again, since I knew it, I could have just typed it in, but this is a really handy little tool that is built into CloudForms. When you've got hundreds and hundreds of groups, you just really only need to put in part of the name, and it will find what it'll find all the entries that are close to that, and you can choose the right one. So on the roles, I showed you that you have access to blocking out people from kind of the UI components. Inside of groups, you now have the ability to start blocking things at a little lower level, right? So we can start doing things like blocking people from being able to see certain locations. So maybe you have a group that is only in London, and those users, we only want them to, these developers should only ever see things that are tagged as London. And so this kind of keys into CloudForms, extensive tagging that it has all throughout there. But it's also got things like cost center, so we can allow people to see certain cost centers or not see cost centers at all. And so this just allows us to filter things on the tagging level. Going even further, groups allow us to filter what users can see on a host and clusters view, as well as a VMs and templates view. So if we wanted to, we could isolate this CF dev user to just look at, to just be able to administrate the Amazon environments, the cloud environments that I have here. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll go ahead and create this user. Create the group. The group is then created, and let's go ahead and log in as that CF dev and see what that dashboard looks like. So we'll log in as our CF dev user. Their domain password. So now I can see quite a bit different view, right? I can see services, compute, looks like I can see clouds and infrastructure, and all of these over here again are based on that role that we gave it. And if we want to, we can go and verify that we actually can't see any infrastructure. So let's go look at virtual machines. All right, notice we actually can't see any of that vCenter infrastructure in here. So we won't find any VMs listed in here or templates that would be found in vCenter. So the only thing we have access to is actually everything inside of cloud. So we can look at our instances up here. So now you'll notice I probably don't have any, I don't think I've got any instances running in Amazon, but at least you can see that the provider's there, and if I did have VMs running or instances running inside of Amazon, you would see them here. So hopefully this has given you a good idea of the level of control you have inside of CloudForms once you attach it to a domain controller. So hopefully this was helpful. Again, thank you very much.